presentation that you'll walk out feeling the sunshine. So it's been almost a month that we've had Mitch here as our fitness supervisor, and he's been informing us of so many wonderful things. His expertise is quite extensive, and today you will be hearing just some of it, because he's got a lot of stuff up in there, the brain. And I would just encourage you to silence your phones. And he will, after the presentation, he will be available to speak with you individually. I'm not sure where that is going to be, but it will be after his presentation. And we also have refreshments, not Hilton, what is that, Hilton Hotel kind, but good ones, healthy ones. And so please stay and speak to Mitch and find out who he is and what he's about. And I'm going to give him the microphone, and he's going to move on.
Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone. Good to see a lot of you I've met, a lot of you I haven't, so it's great to see all of you. So let me introduce myself if you haven't met me, and more importantly, let me introduce these guys. We have Max and Tex and Penny, and there's Carmel Kitty on the end. And so I go home to it. I would love to bring them to the fitness center. They might alternately love it and hate it. I'm not exactly sure. Max is not a fitness center. Thank you. Anyway, good to see you. So one of the more frustrating things as a trainer, I've been a trainer for about 15 years or so, is there's a lot of really shady information out there. A lot of it's misleading, a lot of it's just wrong, a lot of it's really unhelpful. And it's really hard if you're just trying to find out something, what is what. There's a lot of people that are involved in fitness that make a lot of money trying to make this all sound very confusing and complicated. And so you'll buy something from them because they have the answer. And that's not really the case. It should be simple, it should be enjoyable, and it should be empowering. And the nice part about that is the more simple, joyful, and empowering it is, the more it's likely to work. So today I want to start kind of, pulling away some of the mysticism or whatever, and kind of simplify just what's a really easy way and easy to think about getting started, or just continuing, kind of maybe changing your mindset a little bit, which might help you make this a little more sustainable and fun. So if you have any questions, raise your hand. I'm going to answer every question. Okay, if you want to ask in this room, okay. If you want to ask in this room in front of everyone, that's great. If you want to wait till we're done, I'll be right here answering every question. If you want to talk one-on-one, we can, set aside a time in the fitness center, we'll do it there. But I want to make sure that everyone gets everything that they need from this presentation today and moving forward, okay? And that's kind of what I'm here for, okay? So first, I just want to ask this question. This is a very important question. What is the most important thing you can get from a workout? Does anyone have any ideas?
Longer life.
Improved mood.
Yeah, very much.
Is that?
You said improved mood.
Healthier life.
Yes.
Clear thinking.
Very good.
That you're so excited you can't wait to go back and do it.
That's exactly it. So these are all really good answers, and he nails it, because all of that comes from this, is wanting another workout. And if you look at everything about fitness through this kind of a lens, it's going to be so much more approachable and fun, and again, empowering, because this should be empowering. It should be fun. So yeah, always think about that. We're going to come back to this to the point where you're probably sick of hearing it. All right, so what's number one? So if we're talking about the 5 success strategies to starting or continuing a program, what is number one? and that is be consistent. Okay, now obviously there's a wide range of what this can mean. But the fundamental of it is that without consistency, none of this matters. Because all of this is about habits. Exercise is about consistency over a long period of time, whatever that means to you. And it's different for everyone. So when people come in and they ask me, how many times should I work out? How long should I work out? And what I ask them is this, some version of this. What are you 100% willing and able to do? And it's not about what you should do based on what some guy on the internet wrote. It's about what you should do. And everyone is different. Okay, and it's really important to understand that figuring this all out through the lens of wanting to come back for another workout is what really matters. Because again, you don't want to feel overwhelmed. You don't want to come in and feel like, oh my goodness, I got to be an hour here, I got to be in 4 times a week, when am I going to do this? I hate doing this, this is really awful. Like, that's all the things that come into your mind when you're feeling overwhelmed or you really don't want to do something, and that's not the way to approach fitness in a way that's going to actually make a positive difference in your life. Again, the benefits of exercise come from consistency and doing this over a long period of time. And you're going to do that if you like to do it, not if you don't like to do it. So, always remember that. I can't stress that enough. So, if number 1 is be consistent, number 2, work hard. And this seems pretty simple, but working hard means different things to different people. And again, if you're thinking about wanting to come back from another workout, if you're too sore or tired or you hated it from the first time, that's not going to make you want to come back for another workout. So when we talk about working hard, think about it like this. If the top line is your comfort zone, the bottom line is where we want to work. And see how that's just inching past the comfort zone? We don't need to be here. Now, that's what a lot of people think. They think, well, this isn't going to get me anywhere. But the funny thing is that if you start here, usually you're not going to be here very long. Because you're not used to it, you're going to be really sore, you might actually hurt yourself. And again, if you're coming from a point where you don't necessarily love to do this, but you're doing it because you need to for some reason or another, this is a much more approachable and empowering way to approach it. And the really cool thing is that if you consistently approach inching past your comfort zone just a little bit, in like 6 months you're going to be where the bottom line is. You don't think of it that way because these are little steps that you're taking along the way. And then you look up one day and you're like, I couldn't do this 6 months ago. I couldn't lift this weight. I couldn't, be on this machine for quite this long. I couldn't get through my workout feeling this good. So, think of it in those terms. Inching past where you want. Progress, not perfection. And having said that, you always want to be honest with yourself about if you are inching past that comfort zone. And again, you don't have to do it by very much, but you do have to do it if you want progress. And progress means different things to different people. Again, your progress is different from their progress, is different from mine, is different from Dina's, is different from everyone's. Everyone has to figure out what their version of progress is for them. And that's what you should be looking at. So work hard. Number 3, this one is an important one, especially if you have any kind of injury or pain or anything like that. Be engaged. So how do the exercises feel? What are they supposed to work? Why are you doing the exercises that you're doing? These are really important questions. And the more you understand the answers to these questions, the more you are going to get out of the exercise. And the gym is not just a place to go and kind of hang out and just kind of mindlessly go through your workout. Think about what you're doing. And again, especially if you have any kind of pain or injury that's postural related, and a lot of it is, having that in your mind when you're doing exercises is going to be really important to getting over those kinds of things. So when you're in the gym, be here now. This is a great quote. When you're doing something, focus on it. It's not just there for you to get through it as fast as you can. And the gym just teaches you how to move. If you are engaged in the gym, you're going to feel, all right, this is how my shoulders are supposed to feel. This is what it feels to stand up tall. This is what it feels to engage my core. A lot of these things are things that we've talked about in the classes, you know, how to engage, how to move, how to move through your hips. All of these little things that really kind of add up over the long term. And the more you get a feel for how those things are supposed to be and how they're supposed to feel and where your shoulders are supposed to be and where your core is supposed to be and things like that, the more you're going to be able to apply that to outside the gym. Because when we're talking posture and we're talking pain and injury, outside the gym is really where the most of your overall benefit's going to be, because you're there more than you're in the gym. But you have to know how to apply these things, and engagement is where you start. Okay? And if you don't know how something is supposed to feel or why you're doing something, how do you know if it's working? So that would lead to number 4, which is ask questions. Okay? Does anyone have any questions so far? If you do, just raise your hand. But the more you know and understand about what you're doing, the more you're going to get from it. And this is really important. This applies to this about anything in life. Sometimes you might just not feel what an exercise is supposed to be doing. You're just kind of doing it. You're like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know where I'm supposed to feel it. It's kind of weird. Why am I doing this? Why am I moving my hips this way? Ask questions about it. Because a lot of times, just a slight form adjustment can make a big difference in how you feel something. And you say, oh, okay, I didn't quite understand that, but now I'm getting it. Now I'm getting how my hip position affects my core, my shoulders, and all these things start to come together so that then you can apply these things. And that's when the goal really strikes. And that also comes to why, how the workouts are put together. So if we've talked about a program where you're attending classes or something like that, things are structured in a certain way for a reason. And some people aren't that interested in knowing what that is, and that's fine. But the more you understand why do we warm up this way? Why do we then go into these exercises? How are you structuring this? The more that can kind of enlighten, the more of these questions you kind of understand, the more you're going to be able to get out of it, because you're going to know what you're supposed to be getting out of each part of your workout. So we have be consistent, work hard, be engaged, ask questions. Okay, that's number 1 through 4. So number 5, follow the program. And again, this means different things to different people. Some people have a very organized program. They know exactly what they're doing. It takes 45 minutes or whatever it takes, and they do it, and they go right down the list. Some people are a little more general. The program can be anything. But you have to understand why you're doing it, and you have to follow it. So this is one of my favorite little passages here from Alice in Wonderland. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go. That's really good. And a lot of people kind of approach their workouts this way. I've talked to many people, and I said, well, how do you know what you're going to do? And it's like, well, I go to the gym, and I see an open machine, and then I sit down on it. And then I do that for a while until I see another open machine. I sit down on that. And you know what? If that's what they want from their workout, then that's fine. That's their program, and that works. But if you want some more solid results, again, particularly if you have some kind of pain or injury or anything like that, then it really does benefit you to have some sort of program that you're following so that you know what you're supposed to be doing, so you know what works for you. And even more importantly, you know what doesn't work for you. You know, this exercise doesn't work for me, so I'm going to do something a little different. And again, that's where the questions comes in. So if this exercise doesn't work for you, whatever that is, let's find one that does. Because if you're doing a certain, exercises are all kind of grouped into certain categories or certain things that we're trying to get out of. You know, we're trying to get this out of this exercise. If that exercise doesn't work for you, what else can fit into that category? And that's what I do. So if you have any questions about that, that's where, you know, following the program and asking those questions can really come into play. And again, there's always a reason for everything. So kind of keep that in mind. It's not just taking spaghetti, throwing it up against the wall, and just picking out an exercise. You're trying to figure out how to benefit you and what you have going on. There's a reason behind everything. And following the program, and again, understanding these steps, are going to give you the best chance of success. So, be consistent, work hard, be engaged, ask questions, and follow the program. So this may not be what you thought I was going to talk about. Maybe you thought I was going to talk about specific exercises or different things to do with your cardio or something like that. But this applies to everything. And again, when you kind of look at that, when you look at this through the lens of always wanting another workout, and whatever you do, you want another workout. You always want to be able to come back and get the benefits of fitness, and this is how you do it. Because that applies whether you're trying to get stronger, whether you're trying to run a marathon, whether you're trying to get over a shoulder injury. It always kind of comes back to these 5 things. And if you're not getting what you need out of fitness, I would guess that one of these things is not quite in line. And that's what I'm here to do, is to help you with that. So I'll tell you a quick little story. A long time ago, I took Taekwondo from a guy in San Francisco, and one day he brings us down to the locker room, the whole class, and in the locker room there's a spigot, and the spigot is dripping. It's not any of the plumbing, it's something. There's a bucket underneath the spigot, and the bucket's pretty full. And he just points to the bucket and the spigot. We're like, what the heck's going on here? And he says, this is your training right here. And I'm like, this is weird, okay. And he says, every time you come in, it's like a drop in the bucket. Just a little drop, one at a time. You know, each workout doesn't mean all that much, but if you come in and you're consistent and you do these things, soon you're going to have a full bucket. And I've always looked at things like that because, again, if we're talking about consistency, we're talking about wanting to come back, we're talking about kind of having this type of approach, that's the way you want to think about it. Now, one day you may have a really great workout and you get 2 drops. One day you might have a lousy workout, but you still get half a drop. But it all goes in the bucket. And so always think about that. You know, if you're thinking, yeah, I don't know about today. Well, come in for 10 minutes, you get a half a drop. It all goes in the bucket. You know? And that's how to approach these things. 2 more things. Just some things that I've put together so far here. One is the blog. I don't know if anyone has seen that. It's on the resident website. There's videos there. There's some workout tips and examples. I'm adding to it pretty regularly, at least a couple of times a week. If you go to the fitness section on the website, it's in the drop down. You can just click on that and read what I got. If you want to see anything on there in particular, let me know. I'll love to do questions and answers and whatever. You know, it's just kind of a free-flowing thing, but you know, something to kind of look at if you want to know a few extra things. And this is something I'm really excited about, which is our new Get Stronger program. So this is a program that was created to help anyone get stronger or get fitter in an easy, safe, and common sense way. And the way it's designed is that just about anyone can do it. And if you go to that page, it describes the program. There's a little video breakdown of how it all works and how to put it together. There's a template that you can download to put together your workouts. And of course, I'd be more than happy to go over any of this with anyone, put it all together for you. There's video demonstrations of about like 15 or 20 different exercises on there. And it's, you know, if you want to do something a little different, something you haven't tried before, this is a great way to get started.
Mitch, are the numbers that one finds on the Kaiser machines the weights that have been put in by the previous user?
Yeah, so Ian asked if the weights, when you go to the Kaiser machines and you just start getting on them, the resistance in there is the weight that was set by whoever was on it before. So yeah, you need to adjust that to whatever you're going to do. Yes.
Thanks. I'm incredulous at the high, heavy weights.
Okay, it's not the weight that the Kaiser's like, you're going to do this.
It's going to go way down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of us at this age especially have various problems, situations. How do you deal with that in your classes?
That's a good question. She asked how we, in the class, when there could be 15 people in the class? How do you deal with everyone's particular issues? And the answer to that is that again, you're kind of getting back to being engaged in things, because there are certain things that apply for every exercise. So for instance, I mean, I can give you my particular routine by that is, if someone say they're doing a squat, and they say, oh, this is kind of hurting my back. And I'll ask, okay, well, at what point in the squat does your back hurt? Is it at the top, is it at the bottom? And then at that point, I can kind of look at their form in that position and say, okay, well, you're doing this with your hips, or you're not doing this with your hips, or something like that. So it's kind of piecing it together, and usually it's about stopping just short of where the pain is starting, because that usually is about where your position goes off. How you apply that in a big room is a little different, but this is an in-depth answer. I can talk about this stuff for way too long. But it's about finding the main issues. Generally speaking, when we're talking the exercises that we're doing in those classes, there's certain things that people will get wrong on those exercises, or there's certain issues that most people will exhibit. And I've been doing this long enough that I can pretty much point those out to a large extent, if that answers your question. Does that answer your question? Okay. So what I'm trying, I think, to put it more concisely is, generally speaking, if someone has a particular pain with an exercise, there's a few reasons why that may be the case, and I can point those out.
What suggestions do you have for getting past step one?
That's a great question, because he asked, what are the suggestions for getting past step one? And that is a great question. And then the reason everyone laughed is because everyone's like, yeah. It's always approaching it with what's going to make me come back. Whether it's I talked to someone, I've talked to a lot of people, and the first thing, I mean, I've talked to thousands of people about exercise. And the first thing a lot of them say is almost apologetically is, I hate to exercise. I hate doing this. And I always looked at it, my job is to make it as fun as possible. Like, maybe it's not as fun as like hanging out and watching a movie, but if they're gonna come to my gym, I'm gonna make it as fun and as enjoyable as I can make it. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but the first thing is to, with whatever someone's doing, they're gonna like doing it as much as possible, even if it's for 5 minutes. So what I would say is, like the fitness center, there's a lot of examples, there's a lot of things to do in there. There's dumbbells, there's a bunch of cardio machines, there's the Kaiser machines, there's the TRX, there's bands. Find one thing that you like doing for 5 minutes, and that's where you start. And it can be anything, you know, just that's where you begin, and you build up from there. And what I found is that when people kind of give themselves permission to just do that, just show up for 5 minutes on their way somewhere else if they need to, it builds from there. What gets in people's way is thinking, oh, I have to do this. And in their mind, they're like, oh, God, I really hate doing this, but I have to do it. And then a week later, they're not doing it. And no one does stuff they hate doing. You know?
Another way of looking at it is what Carol Lee used to say, movement is medicine.
Yes.
And if you feel like that's something you want to embrace,
Yes.
use the gym.
Yeah, she said, Carol Lee used to say movement is medicine, and she's exactly right.
You know, I'm taking your osteo chair class, and the more I understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, the more consistency is my huge problem. The more I want to come. So having fun is not as important to me as knowing why I'm doing something, because all those pieces begin to fit together.
Yeah, that's a great point.
In terms of knowing,
Yeah.
not doing the exercises so much, which is knowing why I'm doing this.
Yeah, she said that she's been coming to the classes, and in the classes, I really try to make a point of really explaining why we're doing things and how things kind of fit together. And that is really getting her to want to come back and understand how her body works. And that's, again, kind of being engaged that's part of it. So that's huge. So thank you, I'm glad that you're getting it.
Yeah, I'm taking the osteo class too, it's really great, especially the martinis after the class.
Only the best.
I wanted to comment on something that most everybody may know about, and that is like several years ago, my doctor started talking to me about the necessity for strength training
Mhm.
to build muscle tone and mass. I wonder if you wanted to comment on that for.
Yeah, absolutely. So he talked about, he's been in the osteo chair class, but he's talking about his doctor recommended strength training, which is really important. And that's why I put together that Get Stronger program specifically. And strength training, I mean, I love strength training, but osteoporosis, muscle wasting, mobility, balance, maintaining independence, playing with your grandkids, like doing, bringing in your grocery bags. Strength training helps all of that. It's just incredibly important. Cardio is important. Everything, I mean, there's a lot of aspects of things that are important. A lot of things flow from strength training. And again, that's why I put together that program. I think it's really important, and it's also just, I've found in my experience that for a lot of people, particularly people that kind of aren't familiar with it or may feel intimidated by it, it's actually really empowering. And when it's done right, it really is adaptable for everyone. So it's not, it's not about squatting 500 pounds. It really isn't. And it feels like that, like strength training. Like there's that big guy on TV with those big weights, and that's not what it really has to be. And in fact, it really should. And it's all adaptable for people, and it really is important for a lot of things.
I was told a long time ago, and I've always believed in it, the importance of warming up for 5 or 10 minutes before you really start to engage with doing the weight training or doing something that's a little tougher. And I see a lot of people that don't do that. And it's, from what I understand, it's kind of it's hurting.
Yeah, it can. She was asking about the value of warming up. She's saying she sees a lot of people that don't warm up. And it is important. And again, it is adaptable for people depending on what you're doing and specifically. But some kind of warm-up is important because you want to get the joints in your body working, you want to get your circulation going, you want to get your body used to moving in good ways to kind of prepare you. So, in the classes, we usually start off with some kind of a cardio, kind of build up there, then we stretch a little bit based on what we're going to be doing that day, the specific exercises. But yeah, warm-up is important in some way, shape, or form. And again, especially if you do have some pain or injury that you're trying to overcome, it becomes very important. And what a lot of times you'll see is if you warm up properly, a lot of that pain starts to dissipate as you go into your workout. So, yeah, it can be very important. And that's something else, like warm-ups can be very individual based on what people need. So talk to me about it. Like, if you want to know what's the best way I can warm up, what are some good moves I can do, let me know. We'll dial it all in.
Are there any exercises for an age group that you shouldn't do?
This is a really good question, because if you look online and you look up.
What's the question?
Oh, yeah, I was so anxious to answer it, I forgot. He asked if there are any exercises that you shouldn't do when you reach a certain age. And if you look online, exercise when you're 70, what are you gonna see? You're gonna see all these really annoying articles that tell you everything you shouldn't do when you hit 59 or 60 or 70. Like the day before you turn 70, you could do all these exercises and now you gotta stop. No, this might sound a little counterintuitive, but I very rarely look at someone's age only when I'm putting together a program for them. I look at the person, I look at the condition they're in, I look at their goals, I look at injuries. That's what I look at. So it's not, to me, it's not really based on age. It's about the person themselves. So there's not any exercise that I would say, don't do this past a certain age. I would say, don't do an exercise if it hurts at any age. Don't, if you have certain conditions or whatever, maybe certain exercises are counterproductive, but not based solely on age, no. Any other, anything?
But expectations realistically have to be adjusted downward as some of your strengths decline, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's tricky. That is tricky. So I
The
Oh, yeah. Added it. He said expectations do have to be kind of adjusted as you get older, and that's certainly, like, it'd be silly for me to say that age has no effect on anything, or else Michael Jordan would still be playing basketball, you know? But I do think that age itself is less of a factor than some other things. I don't think that, I've had clients that were 25 that told me how old they felt. I'm serious, and we know, there's people in this room that are a lot older than 25, and they're in great shape and have great energy and do wonderful things every single day. So it's not just age, it really isn't. There's other factors involved. So it's, again, it's silly to say that as the age has no effect, but there's no reason that at any age you can't get really good workouts and get really nice improvement. There's been studies of people in their 70s, 80s, 90s doing, getting benefits from exercise. There's no reason you can't.
Question over
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So, pain is tricky. So,
Yeah.
like, how do you know when, they say sharp pain, how do you know when you should just push through? And how do you know when you should stop?
She asked, when should you push through pain? Which is a really, really good question and a tough one to answer, because it is tricky. I'll give you some general rules that I've used. Again, this is very individual and very case specific. Joint pain, you don't want to push through joint pain. If something hurts you in your knee, you're doing something wrong, or there's something wrong, okay? If it's muscular soreness, maybe you can push through that a little bit, but again, it's very tricky, and it's very individual. So that's a real hard question to answer in a general setting. Yeah, I actually don't feel right about answering in a general setting, because it's so individual. Pain can be literally just, hey, just move your shoulder this way and see how that feels. Oh, it feels better. It could be bad, or it can be like some stabbing thing, and you're just trying to get through something. Without having a real specific thing to look at, it's a very hard question to answer. But generally speaking, if an exercise hurts, at least adjust it, don't just push through it.
Used to be no pain, no gain.
Yeah, that's not really true. I mean, yes, like if you're pushing, and again, remember the comfort zone, a little past that comfort zone, there is gonna be a little discomfort, but discomfort's different than pain. So, and again, this is very, very individual. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, when we're talking pain and working hard and these kinds of things, these are concepts that are different for every single person. So you can't really just have one umbrella and say, this is what you want to do there. It's very conceptual, and again, we can talk about this too. If someone has like a specific question, when I do this exercise, this happens, or whatever, we can talk about that a little more in detail. But pain is very tricky, and you don't generally want to just tackle it like it's some challenge. Like, you want to get out of it. Yeah, because it usually means something's not right somewhere.
When people have a problem of bone on bone, does exercise help?
It can, again, she said, I didn't do that. She said when people have like a bone-on-bone issue, like, does exercise help with that? So the general vague answer is yes, but it's, again, very specific to the person as to what you want to do. So the common thing about it is like knees. So when people have knee pain, the meniscus is torn, or something's going on in there, and you have bone-on-bone. So squats, generally, they think, are gonna hurt. When you adjust them, so there are very knee-friendly versions of squat, for example. So that can help build up the muscles around the joint that's having a problem, and that's a good thing. It can help you develop movement patterns that can take emphasis off of that joint, so that's a good thing. So in those ways it can help, but you have to make sure you're doing a version of the exercise that's right. And then again, if you're feeling pain, then that version is not right, or your form needs to be adjusted or something like that. Does that answer your question? Is there any other? Oh, okay.
lifting weights or using the weight machines should not be done every day in a row, correct?
Generally speaking, yes. So he asked if you should lift weights or use the machines every day. You should, yeah, generally you don't want to lift weights every day. You can usually, again, this is very individual and it depends. Like, if you've never lifted weights before, the first time you lift, you're probably going to be pretty sore the day after. So you're not going to want to do that. If you are very experienced in lifting weights, then maybe you could do 2, 3, or 4 days in a row. It kind of depends. But generally speaking, a couple days in a row tends to be okay, and then you take a day off, something like that. But again, it's very, very individual.
I think specifically to answer that, it would be more that you don't work the same muscle group every day. You could lift weights every day. One day you may work your glutes, the next day you may work your biceps. As long as you don't work the same muscle group every day is what I think is more specific.
It can be, and again, this depends. Some of these questions, like, you can get real deep in the weeds on them, so I'm trying not to do that exactly. She said it's probably not good to work the same muscle groups on consecutive days. And sometimes that's right, but sometimes, again, it depends on your program. So if you're doing, for example, for a weightlifting program, there's a lot of ways you can arrange it. If you're doing, for most people, I would recommend a full body workout. So they're getting most muscles in their body. So if you're coming the next day, you're still working the same muscles, but you're working them in a different way. So you're not hitting them exactly the same. You're not doing quite the same volume. So if you're just doing an upper body day, you might do 2 or 3 exercises for your shoulders, but if you're doing a full body workout, maybe you just do 1. So you're adjusting the volume of those workouts. So it has a different effect. So, yeah. Some of these questions, these are good questions. I like it. All right, is there any?
I suppose consistency is broken when there's an emergency or you're with a family or holiday or something. And I suppose a good idea is don't try to jump back into where you were, ease back into it if you had to take a break.
Yeah, Ian said that sometimes consistency, you don't have a choice. You have to not work out. There could be an emergency, things can happen. So when you come back in, how do you basically start up again? And this is where consistency actually really helps, because it's a lot. If you don't have kind of a background of consistency, when some emergency happens and you have to stop, you don't have a choice. It's harder to get back going. When you do have that background, it's a lot easier to jump back into it, because again, we're talking about habits. But yeah, you do have to make that adjustment. If you're missing one workout or two, you're probably not going to deteriorate to that extent. If you have to miss 2 months or something like that, then yeah, you have to adjust how you're coming back, absolutely. And again, it's a very individual thing.
Yeah, people after COVID, I feel I'm starting from 0.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about COVID. He said, when people, with the COVID thing, like my gym had to close. I was doing, and there were people that I didn't see for a year, and then they came back in when we could. And they are all like, man, I'm starting from scratch here. And I always told them, and you're never starting from scratch if you have a background. The body's going to remember. It won't forget. It might feel like it forgot, but it didn't really forget. And you're going to get back to right where you were faster than you think. Again, if you take these steps. If you're just trying to jump right in, doing everything you did before the same way, yeah, that's like that comfort zone chart there. If you just take it step by step, do it smart, do it, consistently in a common sense way, you're going to be fine a lot faster than you may have thought. The body remembers, it really does.
Now that we have a pool again, would doing your workout and then alternating with swimming on the other days, you could do a workout on Tuesday and swim on Wednesday. Is that a good thing?
It can be. She asked about it, integrating basically swimming with other workouts, like you want to lift weights or something one day and swim the other day, something like that. And yeah, that might be. It's very individual, and it depends on what you're doing specifically. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with that if it works for you. And, you know, we can talk about how to integrate that and how to kind of get that going. And when you're doing something like that, it really, again, really benefits you to think, what do I really like doing? And put an emphasis on that above everything else, even if you have to do some other things too.
Kathleen McMichael's workouts invoke all the same muscle sets as, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. He said, yeah,
3% less gravity.
yeah, yeah, he was talking about Kathleen McMichael and her workouts in the pool. They work muscle groups too. So again, you know, what you're doing makes a difference. You know, it's not just swimming. It's like there's different ways to kind of approach the pool. Yeah.
Is there a reason that water exercise is better or worse than in the gym exercise? I mean, you just mentioned weight.
Yeah.
Weight displacement so different in water. Is there some way to make a decision like, well, I would probably be happier doing that rather than that?
She asked how to determine what's going to be better for you in the water or not. And the answer to that is really personal preference. It's like there's no better or worse. There really isn't. There may be better or worse if you have a specific thing you're trying to do, and we can talk about what that may be. But generally speaking, there's not really better or worse. You
So
know?
your hips aren't happier in a pool than they would be if you had sore hips?
Not necessarily. They may be, depending on what someone has going on, but it's not really, there's not an answer that's just like it's always going to be this or that. They may feel better for you, and they may not for someone else. But just kind of figuring that out. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.